Instructions for completing a personnel action form. What is the personnel action form? This form is to be utilized for any personnel changes that may take place with the exclusion of new hires and position transfers. New hires and position transfers should always be managed through NeoGov, our applicant tracking system, unless in an extenuating circumstance approved by Human Resources. The personnel action form is required in order for Human Resources to make a change to an employee's record. The personnel action form link. The PAF link can be found on the U drive under Human Resources Forms, Personnel Action Form, and Link to Personnel Action Form. Setting up approvals. This is the first step in creating the personnel action form. PAFs must be approved by the correct approval groups in order to be processed. Once you have filled out all the signers, click Begin Signing and it will take you to the form. As a side note, if an approval level is not needed, say the president or the executive director of human resources is not needed, you can skip that level by leaving the name and email lines blank. If you are someone that needs to approve the form, but you are also the one completing the form, you will enter your name twice on the signer information page. Once in the initiator space, and then again in either the dean or vice president spaces. It is important to check the approval level box prior to filling out the required signers on the PowerForms signer information page. Here you can see the approval levels depending on what type of action you are taking with the PAF form. For example, this is what you'll see when you click the link to the PAF form. This is the PowerForm signer information page. Once you get to this form, you will enter your name and your email in the initiator spaces. Then, depending on the action that you're going to take with the PAF form, you will enter the Dean, Vice President of Academics, Vice President of Finance, President of the college, Executive Director of Human Resources, and you can see that the HR Specialist position is already filled in for you. Again, not all actions with the PAF form will require all approvers, so make sure that you are checking the approval list for your PAF form. Employee profile. The employee profile section of the PAF requires the employee's legal name, employee ID number, and the effective date. This is a required section. The employee name means only legal names, no nicknames or shortened names. The employee ID number. If you cannot get this number from the employee, you can reach out to Human Resources for assistance on getting this number. The effective date. This is the date that you want the action of the PAF to take effect. We'll take a look at an example. So say for our example, I've entered all of my approvals and I click Begin Signing. It's going to take me to the personnel action form. Here you can see in the employee profile, I have entered our employee's name, John Doe, his ID number, and the effective date, the date that I want the action of the PAF to take effect. Current employment status. The current employment status section is requires the information about the employee as they currently stand prior to the changes that you want to take effect with this PAF. This section is required. Here you can see with our example, John Doe is currently in the system right now as active. He is classified staff. His job title is HR Specialist. He's in the Human Resources Department. His supervisor, Sue Clark. and he's not under contract because he is, say, an hourly or non-exempt employee. His organization number is listed as well. If John Doe was, say, professional staff or a faculty member, he would be under contract. So you would select yes here, and the contract length drop down would appear for you. So you can click that little drop down and select the contract length. Classification changes. The classification changes section is where you explain what you want to take effect in the employee's record as a result of this path. You have 5 checkmark options listed on the path: termination, position transfer, reclassification, leave, and salary change. Classification changes termination is your first checkmark option. If processing a termination, the path must be submitted prior to the employee's last day of work, unless the employee quits without notice. In that instance, submit as soon as possible upon being made aware of the resignation. A resignation letter is required to be turned in along with the path for professional staff and faculty, and is preferred for all other employees. If you have an employee that resigns voluntarily, is fired, quits without notice, is laid off, retired, or any other reason that would cause them to no longer be an employee with SFCC, you must complete this section. The last day worked. This is the last day that the employee physically worked or reported hours. The termination date. This is the date that the employee will stop receiving pay and can no longer physically work past. Here on our example path, let's say that John Doe is terminating. So I select the termination checkbox. Here you can see I've listed the last day that he worked, which should always match your effective date here, because that's the day that he is no longer working past. He's terminating on December 16th of 2020. So that's when this path form has to take effect. The term reason. You will have a drop down available here where you can select kind of the reason behind the termination. In this case, we'll say that John Doe voluntarily resigned from his position, and it was all in good standing, so he's eligible for rehire. You'll see here that I've selected yes from the drop down for being rehire eligible. If you say John Doe was terminated for misconduct, so he is not eligible to be rehired, you would explain that in the reason if not rehire eligible. Backfill position at this time. This means that you're wanting to basically open up a position to hire somebody new for this position. So I do want to hire somebody for this position now that John Doe is leaving, so I've selected yes. I've selected to post it internally and externally, which means that it's available for people within State Fair and outside of State Fair to apply. And I have checked the box that I've attached an updated job description for posting the position, which in this case, you actually have to email that corrected and updated job description to Human Resources so that they can update it in the NeoGov applicant tracking system. Classification changes, position transfer. New hires and position transfers should always be managed through NeoGov, our applicant tracking system, unless in an extenuating circumstance approved by Human Resources, such as a forced transfer or a budget-related transfer. If approved by HR, the position transfer section is used when you have an employee switching to a new position in which they receive a new title, supervisor, and department. As a side note, position codes can be found on the employee's leave report or time card. Some examples you can see listed below. If you do not know the employee's new position code, you can call Human Resources and they will assist you. So in our example, let's say that John Doe is getting a position transfer that has been approved by Human Resources, and we'll say it's a budget-related transfer. So you can see I've listed his current position code and his new position code, his new organization number, and his new title. So you can see here, up in his current employment status, so what he currently is in the system, he's an HR specialist, but with this position transfer, he is going to HR coordinator. Classification changes, reclassification. The reclassification section is to be used anytime an employee is switching classification. For example, an employee is going from full-time to part-time or switching from specialist to coordinator. As a side note, the FLSA status is referring to exempt salaried or non-exempt hourly. So let's say in this example that John Doe is getting a reclassification. So we'll say that he is an HR specialist part-time, which up in the current employment status, part-time would be selected. So he is currently part-time, which is non-exempt because it's hourly, and he's getting paid $15 per hour. His new title is HR coordinator. So he's going from part-time to full-time salaried. Here you can see that exempt is selected for salary. Being paid salary, he is now going to get paid $40,000 per year. Classification changes, leave. The leave section is used when you have an employee that is going to be on leave for health-related or for disciplinary reasons. If you have an employee that is going out on leave, this section is required. So let's say in our example, John Doe is going out on leave. You can see you can select if they're going to be out on leave with pay or without pay. There is a drop down next to FMLA, which stands for Family Medical Leave Act. This is typically if an employee is going to be out like on maternity leave or is out for a surgery in which they're going to be out for medical reasons for an extended period of time. So let's say in this example that John Doe is having surgery, so he's going out on FMLA. So I've selected yes next to FMLA. I've selected without pay because he does not have any sick time or vacation time to use while he's on FMLA, so he's not getting paid during that time frame. Then I have entered the date that John's going to be out, start to be out due to leave. So he's going out on leave on December 16th, which also matches our effective date. Classification changes, salary. The salary change section is to be completed anytime an employee's salary is changing outside of campus-wide raises. This includes individual department raises and educational advancement requests. Reminder, all pay changes must be presented and discussed with the Executive Director of Human Resources prior to the change going into effect. Here on our example of John Doe, let's say that he is getting a salary change. So for this example, let's say that he's getting a increase from his department because he had an increase in job duties. So currently, he is being paid $15 per hour. So you can see I've selected the hourly checkbox. His new rate is going to be $15.50. So that's also going to be per hour. So I've selected the hourly checkbox. Because this is just a department increase, it has nothing to do with an educational advancement request. So I've selected no on all of those options. The date of the last salary change. So in this box, you'll want to select the last time that the employee received an increase of any kind. So let's say that there were campus-wide increases that took effect for all employees on July 1st. So that's the last time that John Doe received an increase. Then you'll enter the justification for salary change request. So like I said, he is getting this increase because he had an increase in job duties. So I've provided that information there. If your employee, so say John Doe is a faculty member and he's getting a level and step increase, you would enter that information here by selecting the drop down of what type of level he's going up to and which step. If the employee is getting an increase due to an educational advancement request, you would select yes here. The 4509A and 4509B are referring to the forms that must be completed prior to the employee starting the courses for an educational advancement and after they have completed all courses for the educational advancement. Both of these forms have to be on file with Human Resources for the employee to get an educational advancement. Classification changes, comments. The personnel action form does not contain any and all changes that can occur with employees. So if you do not see the classification change reason for the action that you need, use the comments section. In the comments section, you must explain in detail what you wish to occur in regards to changes to your employee's record. Include dates, pay rates, and an explanation for why the change needs to occur. The comment section can also be used to further explain the classification reasons presented on the form. So for example, say something is happening with the employee that you need, say they've dropped a class, so you can explain what class is being dropped, that they're no longer going to be teaching, so that job needs to be terminated. You can provide that information in the comments section. Again, remember to always add any pay information, dates, and the reason behind why this action needs to take place. Again, you can provide additional information for any of these listed change types. So for example, with the termination, and say we had selected misconduct, you can further explain the situation or what exactly happened that caused this person to be terminated due to a misconduct. So your comment section can be used for both of those options. The budget change needed section. The budget change the budget change section of the path is used anytime there is a change to the employee's job labor distribution. You must enter the budget information for where the employee is currently being paid and then the proposed budget change. All budget changes must be approved by the Vice President of Finance. So, say with John Doe, Nothing's really changing with his record except for his budget information. So you'll see I didn't select anything here because none of these really apply. I can explain it here in the comments section that, hey, we're just changing where John Doe is getting paid from. So you can see here, I checked the yes, there is a budget change needed. I have listed the current budget allocation, so where he is currently being paid from, and the proposed budget allocation. So where I want him to get switched to being paid from. It is important that you fill in all of these boxes for the individual so that we have all the information when entering the budget information. Approvals. You will notice on the bottom of the path is the approval section. This section will be blank when you submit the form by clicking Finish. When you click Finish, the form will go out for approval based on the approvers you entered on the beginning page. So again, on the path form, it's all blank. Nobody has approved yet. But once I go down here and I click Finish, because I've entered all of the needed information on the path, I click Finish, the form will automatically email out to the approvers that you listed on the beginning page. Some final tips. After submitting a path, it is always a good idea to follow up with the approvers to let them know that you submitted a path that they will need to approve and to be on the lookout for. Please keep in mind, there are certain personnel changes that have a policy attached to that process, so it is imperative that the initiator review the policy prior to submitting a form. Many of these policies also have submission deadlines, such as an educational advancement request or position reclassification changes. After reviewing the policy, if there are questions regarding any policy specifics, please reach out to HR to discuss prior to submitting the form. If a form is received by Human Resources and either the required sections have not been completed fully, the appropriate approvals have not been included, or the process was not followed, the form will not be processed and will be returned to the initiator to correct and resubmit.